Hello guys, and this is Scott here, and today I've got another historic video for you. And this is one I've actually had on my list for quite a while, and it's of the very variable and interesting spring of 2008. As I said, it's been on my list for quite a while, so I thought it's about time I get on with this one. But it was a very interesting spring because a lot of people remember it for a very big cold snap in April, and then quite a warm and dry May. But there are other interesting parts of this, so I thought it'd be a good video to show you. So before we get started, I'd just like to say that many of the charts that you see in this video come from the historical archive at weathercentral.d. They have, as I say, an archive of weather charts going back to the start of January 1871. So like always, if you want to request a historic video, you can pick anything from the start of January 1871. And also, many of the facts and figures that you hear in this video come from Trevor Harley's personal weather website. He has detailed facts of weather going back to the start of the 1900s, and even smaller fragments of information going back further than that. So that's a great resource, and like always, I'll leave the links to those two websites in the description below. So we're going to start off on the 1st of February 2008, because actually February was quite an interesting month. To put things into context, we were having quite a mild winter, but thankfully, well, for most people who like cold weather I suppose, and interesting weather, things got a bit more interesting as we went into the February. Now, February 2008 has a central England temperature of 5.4 degrees, which is slightly milder than average, but it was actually the sunniest February on record, and England and Wales actually recorded 130 hours of sunshine, which easily beat the previous record. So there we are on the 1st of February, and it looks quite interesting straight away, as we have quite a deep Atlantic system moving to the northeast of Scotland. Now, if you follow those isobars, those very tight isobars in fact, the winds are actually quite northerly there. So we brought a bit of an Arctic blast down on the 1st of February, and this caused transport chaos across Scotland and northern England. In fact, Trevor Harley reports on his website that there was a lot of cars stuck on the A66 in County Durham in quite a serious blizzard that hit on the afternoon of the 1st. But that doesn't last long, because as we go through the 2nd and into the 3rd of February, we swing the winds back round into the southeast, so that cold spell quickly gets brushed away, and we start to build high pressure in Europe. And now that's a feature that's going to play a big part as we go through this first half of February, because as we go through the 4th and into the 5th of February, you can see we've got the Azores High trying to gather to the south. You know, we're still under a fairly cool and unsettled pattern there, but as we go through the 6th and into the 7th of February, the Azores High builds up into the southeast of the country, and if you follow those isobars back there, they go a long way to the southwest. So this drags up some very mild air through this second week of February. So into the 8th, we're slowly bringing up milder weather, and this is bringing temperatures actually up into the low to mid-teens. And what's interesting about this, as I said, it was the sunniest February on record, so this was a very sunny spell. And that's quite unusual with mild weather in winter. Normally you'd expect mild winter days to be rather cloudy, but no, the skies were completely clear with this. And the temperatures carry on rising actually as we go through the 9th of February. And actually that high blocks off a very vicious storm out in the North Atlantic there. And into the 10th and the 11th of February, again we just carry on bringing up those very warm south to southwesterly winds. And in the strengthening sunshine, you know, it's very gradually starting to strengthen at this time of the year. I nearly said hot there, didn't I? We're slowly bringing those temperatures further up, And actually on the 12th of February we actually record 18.2 Celsius at Troscoed in central Wales. And that's exceptionally mild for February. You know, there was a lot of frost and fog in the morning, but to get to 18.2 degrees in February is really quite an achievement. And actually this spell has flashbacks of February 1998. So for those that aren't aware, there was a spell very similar to this in February 1998. And that could be one we might have a look at in another historic video. But for now we had shades of that. And again, those are the upper air temperatures there on the 12th of February. You can see we're bringing up very mild air across the country. And it generally stays very mild into the 13th, but this is where it's going to start changing now. Because you can see that high pressure is just trying to ridge up towards Greenland. So it's going to slowly start to shift the wind direction as we go into the second half of the month. So as we go through into the 14th of February, you can see that the high pressure is again just trying to get up to Greenland. But really low pressure just to the south of Greenland blocks it in a way. So it doesn't quite pull it off. But as we go through to the 15th, that you can see now we're starting to bring in an easterly wind across the country. So it's not moved far enough northwards to bring us bitterly cold weather, but it's moved far enough north at least to bring us, you know, an easterly, which at this point, don't forget, is quite cold. So we start to brush away all of that very mild air, and we bring some fairly cold air off the continent. So into the 16th, you know, the high pressure builds back through the UK itself, but we're under a completely different air mass now. So, you know, we've not got days in the mid-teens, you know, we've got days barely above freezing now. So temperatures in the space of, you know, 4 days or so have fell by about 15 degrees. So quite a remarkable change there. But again, it remains very sunny, though there were some patches of dense fog in this actually. And that lasts through the 17th and the 18th of February really. So now we've switched it to cold anticyclonic, and there's hard overnight frosts and days aren't much above freezing. And that goes through the 19th, and on the 19th we have temperatures going into minus double figures across quite a large part of the north of the country. So again, a very big dramatic temperature shift there. Before by the 20th we start to, you know, moderate the pattern again. So through into the 21st of February 2008 we bring the westerlies back through the country. And really that takes us through the rest of the month. So the 22nd and the 23rd and the 24th, we just keep it changeable and relatively mild. Not overly mild, but, you know, fairly average temperatures to be honest. Through the 25th and the 26th, you know, we bring a fairly big storm system to the north there. Into the 27th and the 28th. Before we finish off on Leap Day. 2008 was a leap year, of course. And that takes us into the start of March, and March 2008 was quite an interesting month as well. It has a central England temperature of 6.1 degrees, which actually makes it colder than the January of this year. And then there was some notable wintry blasts in this. You know, overall it was generally quite a wet and stormy month, but there were some very interesting cold blasts in this, especially over the Easter period, and we'll get to that as we head through the month. So on the 1st of March we have again another storm system moving to the northeast of Scotland. You know, quite interestingly, we start March in a very similar way to how we started February. So through the 2nd and the 3rd, you can see actually that the Azores High is pulled out a bit more into the mid-Atlantic now. So what this is doing is giving us more cold zonality. And if you flick back to the charts in February, you'll notice again that the Azores High was generally around Spain and France, but now as it's pulled out into the North Atlantic, it's giving us more of a northwesterly flow. So this is directing colder air towards the British Isles. So into the 4th actually, we then shift the winds into a bit of a northerly. So we bring colder air down on that, and that brings some hard overnight frost and some snow showers down the east coast from that trough there. It's only a very temporary feature because that high pressure collapses through the country through the 5th and into the 6th of March, before we then set up quite an unsettled and stormy pattern. So through the 7th and the 8th of March we keep it generally very unsettled. So into the 9th and the 10th, we bring a very vicious system through there on the 10th. Notably, this actually caused some very severe coastal erosion, some very strong waves and strong winds produced some coastal erosion along the northeast coastline. The sorts that you'd see over the course of a year actually occurred in just a day. So quite a remarkable feature there. And that goes through into the 11th and the 12th of March. We bring another big system through on the 12th. And on the 13th, generally changeable and unsettled. Before by the 14th, just notice how high pressure is starting to build a little bit into the mid-Atlantic. So just to the south of Greenland, we've got a bit of a gap between the troughs that features, a bit of higher pressure. Now that's very interesting what it does, because as we go through the 15th, it migrates up to Greenland a little bit. And so that's just caused heights to rise a bit around Greenland. And that's going to play a big feature as we go through March and into April. So on the 16th, you can see actually that those low pressure systems have now dived to the south of the country. And high pressures building to the north. So we're starting to slowly edge colder air towards the UK. So into the 17th again, just threatening a northerly there, and into the 18th, before they're actually on the 18th, we're now starting to bring a gentle northerly across the country. So this is introducing cooler air, so now we're getting fairly hard frosts overnight, and I'd imagine some snow showers down the east coast actually. And into the 19th, we generally keep high pressure just to the west, so that's keeping us under a fairly chilly northerly into the 20th. And this is where it gets really interesting now, because that low pressure that swings around the top of the high then dives down the North Sea, and that puts us into quite a strong northerly there on the 21st. And the 21st of March 2008 was actually Good Friday. And a weather front cleared the south of the country on this day, and much colder air flowed in behind it. So there was some quite widespread snow showers on Good Friday. And that took us into the 22nd of March. This is Holy Saturday, the day between Good Friday and Easter Day. And again, a very strong northerly wind there. And we have snow showers blasting in across the east coast under a north to northeasterly wind. And what was remarkable is daytime temperatures here weren't much above freezing, maybe just 2, 3, 4 degrees. And then on the 23rd, this was Easter Sunday. I think this is about as early as Easter can fall actually. You can see we've got a kink in those isobars there. And this brought a band of snow down across the country. And in fact we had snow as far south as the Midlands on the 23rd. Depths between up to about 10 centimetres. So a lot of places woke up to a snow cover on the morning of Easter, including my area actually. I think there was, I was only young at the time, but I think there was about 5 or 10 centimetres. So really quite remarkable even for this late time of the year. And the day was generally very cold as well. As I said, daytime temperatures not much above freezing. And those are the upper air temperatures there on Easter Sunday. You can see, we've got the -5 isotherm has pretty much well and truly cleared the country. So that tells you that it's cold enough for snow. And actually we've got the -10 very close to East Anglia. And that, as I say in other videos, is very cold winter air. And when you see that, it's just a very big sign. It's usually a sign of some very cold weather to come. And we saw that in this point in March. And it carries on into the 24th, so this is Easter Monday. Again, we keep large snow showers developing, coming down across the country. Into the 25th, and on the morning of the 26th of March, we actually record minus 11.4 degrees at Braemar. So again, a very cold temperature for very late in the season. But as we go through the day on the 26th, you can see we're gradually bringing low pressure in off the Atlantic now. And this is gradually introducing milder weather. So through the 27th and into the 28th of March, we bring milder weather back through the country. And into the 29th, again, we turn it quite wet and windy again. Into the 30th and the 31st. And that takes us into the start of April 2008. And this is a very notable month. A lot of people remember this month for the very potent Arctic blast in the first week of it. But as we go through the charts, you'll see that actually the best way to describe this month is actually everything but the kitchen sink. This April had pretty much every single weather type there is. It was really a very remarkable and variable month. And its central inland temperature is 7.9 degrees, which is slightly below average, and that's due to the lengthy cold spell. So we start off on the 1st of April 2008, and we're bringing in a fairly deep area of low pressure for the time of year, into just to the northwest of Scotland. So again, this brings more wet and windy weather. But looking at the chart there, there's also another interesting feature. You can see we've got the Azores high to the south of the UK, but we've got a Greenland block to the north. So that's going to allow this big Arctic plunge to set up. So as we go through the 2nd, you can see as that low pressure clears away, the high pressure to the south actually builds up through the country. Now for the time being, this actually brought some very warm and dry weather. So we had temperatures up into the mid to upper teens in this early part of April. So into the 3rd. But as we go through into the 4th, you can see that high pressure now, as we move low pressure away to the north, is starting to build in behind that low. And that's going to just about tell us where the atmosphere is going, because as we go into the 5th, we open the doors into a northerly wind. The high pressure jumps up to Greenland, so that's proper retrogression there. And retrogression, as I always say, is the opposite of the zonal flow. It's when pressure systems go from east to west, as opposed to west to east. So that puts the winds, as I say, into the north. And as we go through into the 6th of April, you can see we have those blue colours over the country there. And that is a weather system coming down across the country. And in the early hours of the 6th of April 2008, we brought up to 10 centimetres of snow across the southeast of England. So this was a very potent late season blast. There was actually a lot of snow down the south along the east coast. Parts of Scotland actually had up to 20 centimetres of snow. So really deep snow depths for early April. And again, temperatures at this time of year were barely above freezing. Again, a very remarkable feat for so late in the season. Those are the upper air temperatures there on the 6th of April. Again, the -5 Celsius isotherm has cleared the country, and we have the -10 Celsius coming down. The -5 is always used as the reference point for snow, but when you get the -10 Celsius isotherm, that's when you're talking about proper deep cold. In January that would bring extremely cold weather. But we're still getting it in April, so it just shows that even this late into the season you really can still get pretty potent wintry blasts. And it goes on into the 7th as well. The 7th of April was another cold day. And actually this picture, it's quite poor quality, and I apologise for that. But this picture was taken outside of Buckingham Palace on the 7th of April 2008. And again, it just shows all the snow that fell the previous day. So, the snow lay for more than a day, and that's quite unusual once you get to April. Normally the increasing sun melts it fairly quickly, but no, this stayed for at least a good day or two. And it stays chilly again into the 8th of April, so you can see we have those blue colours still over the country there on the pressure chart, which indicates cooler air. And into the 9th as well. Before by the 10th we start to bring low pressure in off the Atlantic. Now this is moving into cooler air. So as we go through into the 11th, this actually allows some pretty impressive convection. I should mention actually that April 2008 was a very thundery April. And especially in this middle part, the 11th and into the 12th of April, the slack low pressure over the country allowed some very big spring thunderstorms to develop. And again, there was some very frequent lightning in this and a lot of hail. This month also had a lot of hail in it as well. And again, just some very spectacular cloudscapes and some very frequent lightning in some of these storms. And that takes us into the 13th as well. And the 14th, and actually on the 14th there, we threatened another northerly blast. But the high pressure does slowly build through the country, and that takes us into the second half of the month. So through the 15th and into the 16th of April, that high pressure starts to go to our northeast. And as we go through into the 17th, this starts to pull up a southeasterly. So by this point, a southeasterly is somewhat warm. It's bringing a lot warmer air in than that northerly did, that's for sure. It's not overly warm at this time, but again, as I say, it's bringing fairly mild weather in. Into the 18th and the 19th, that's actually a very black pattern there on the 19th. High pressure around Iceland and Greenland and low pressure nearly in the channel. If this had been January, this would have been a very severe cold spell. But, obviously it is April, so the sun is getting stronger now, so it does allow days to get warmer. But if the synoptics of April 2008, including that northerly blast, had happened, in a winter month, you really would be considering a bitterly cold month with this. And that takes us into the 20th, where we see no change really, and into the 21st we keep the easterly winds going through the country and low pressure to the south. Into the 22nd and the 23rd of April, this is where it starts to change now as we bring the Azores high into the south. So into the 24th, you can see we're gradually dragging up a southwesterly wind now. And this is very slowly going to bring warmer weather up. So as we go through the 25th and into the 26th of April, we finally see our first spell, of significant warmth in the spring. And we actually have temperatures going up to 22 degrees at Weyburn in Norfolk. So, quite a decent temperature for the end of April, really. And that goes on into the 27th and the 28th, before we bring another area of low pressure into the north. And again, this brings more big convective showers. So into the 29th, and that takes us to the end of April 2008. So overall, really, a very interesting month. But as we go into May 2008, we're going to see, very warm weather this time. May 2008 has a Central England temperature of 13.4 degrees, which makes it the warmest May since 1992. And there was a big north-south divide in this. There was high pressure generally clung on to the north, which meant that there was just 7 millimetres of rain in Shetland, whereas there were some big thunderstorms in the south. And in fact, Fair Isle actually recorded 303 hours of sunshine. So really, if you like summery Mays, May 2008 was a vintage month. So let's have a look at it. So we start off with that low pressure from the end of April on top of us on the 1st of May. Just notice though how we've still got Greenland blocking. And that takes us into the 2nd. And what's interesting here is, you notice that the Greenland blocking give us some very big Arctic blasts. You remember those, they give us those big Arctic blasts in March and April. But this time, the orientation of it just means that we're bringing up warmer weather instead. So, through the 2nd and the 3rd of May, we put the winds into the south, and, quite a far-fetched southerly there, into the 4th and the 5th of May. And, the skies were clear under this, and we had temperatures going up into the mid-20s. It was a fantastic spell of late spring weather, of an early taste of summer with this. Into the 6th and the 7th of May, there's no change. Warm south to southeasterly winds. Into the 8th and the 9th of May, a fantastic spell of weather. Into the 10th, we keep it very warm. And on the 11th of March, temperatures actually peak at 27 Celsius at Malvern. So it really is a fantastic spell of weather, this. And those are the upper air temperatures there on the 11th of May 2008. You can see we generally have warm continental air on top of the UK. And in the sunshine, that's delivering us very warm temperatures for the time of year. And as we go into the 12th, you can see that high pressure now that was generally over the country has migrated a bit to the north. So we keep it generally quite warm, but we just ease off a bit on the temperatures now. Into the 13th, the temperatures just slip a little bit. And the 14th and the 15th, before low pressure starts to wedge closer to the south on the 16th. But notice again, high pressure stays very close to Scotland. This was the reason why May 2008 was so dry up there. Any low pressure that was in this month affected the south, whereas the high pressure just clung on in the north. And as we go into the 17th, no change really. Into the 18th, we keep the north-south divide going. And the 19th, you can see again a big Greenland high there. Normally, as I said about the orientation of this, normally, Greenland highs bring very poor weather in the summer, but this was just one of those rare instances where it actually brought us a very decent month. Into the 20th, it was just ridging enough to bring us warm weather. Into the 21st, we tried to bring up another warm spell on the 22nd, and into the 23rd and the 24th of May. And actually, as we go through into the 25th of May, you can see that we have low pressure interacting with that high pressure, and this now brings a very thundery end to May 2008. So there was some big thunderstorms setting off in the south. Into the 26th and the 27th. So, a very spectacular end to what was a very variable and interesting spring. Into the 28th, actually on the 28th, if I show you the upper air temperatures there, you can see we were on the periphery of a very big hot spell there. I think if that 15 Celsius isotherm had just been, 100 miles or so further west, we would have had a very hot day on the 28th of May. But it just grazed the southeast, giving the southeast quite a hot day. But again, this set off some more big thunderstorms. And on the 29th of May, actually, we recorded 75 millimetres of rain in a thunderstorm in Somerset. And actually there was some flash flooding in parts of Somerset, where again it just remained completely dry up in Scotland. Again the north-south divide here carries on into the 30th and the 31st of May. And that's where we're going to end in this video. But, if you want a story as to where the summer went, unfortunately we had quite a poor summer in 2008. I think there was some okay spells in June and July, but the August of 2008 was absolutely dreadful. If you remember back to the start of the video, I said about February being the sunniest February on record. Well, get this, the August of 2008 were actually recorded less sunshine than the February, so that's absolutely terrible for a summer month. And temperatures were generally very cool throughout it. So a very uninspiring summer followed this spring, unfortunately. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this historic video, guys. As I said, it's one that's been on the list for quite a while, so I thought it was about time to do it. So thanks for watching, and as always, if you have any requests, please send them to me. So thanks for watching again, and I'll see you later.